Guess who's back? Back again. Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
Abracadabra, today we will be digging into one of the most mysterious deaths, Harry Houdini. Houdini is known as one of America's most famous magicians, especially known for his escape artist stunts.
Who exactly is Houdini? His actual name is Erik Weisz. He was born in Hungary in 1874. He migrated to the U.S. with his mother Cecilia and his 4 brothers. And the reason why they migrated to the U.S. is they were going to meet up with their father, who had moved a couple of years previously. They settled in Appleton, Wisconsin. His father was a rabbi for a small congregation. Houdini grew up impoverished, and at the age of 9, he decided that he wanted to help support his family, and so he became a trapeze performer at a circus.
In 1882, he moved to New York City, where he performed in vaudeville shows, and he was very popular. 1891, he was 17, and him and his friend Jacob Heidman created a duo act. This act consisted of a basic set of cards and magic tricks, and they called themselves the Brothers Houdini. 1892, Houdini's father had passed away, so they took the show on the road and performed at dime museums and small theaters. In 1894, Erik got married to Bess, and she became his stage assistant.
So Bess and Erik toured as the Houdinis. Obviously, life traveling on the road is not very easy. You're away from family and friends. You don't have a set routine. Every day is a little bit different. 1898, 25-year-old Houdini wanted to call it quits. In 1899, Houdini was performing at the beer gardens in Minnesota when he caught the attention of a booking agent named Martin Beck. Martin Beck had watched Houdini escape a pair of handcuffs, and so Beck had his own handcuffs, wink wink, that he gave to Houdini, and Houdini escaped them successfully.
Because of that, Beck the Houdinis on the Orpheum vaudeville circuit. It did have less shows, but it was more money, of course. And shortly after that, Houdini gained fame and was admirable. He was built, and most acts that involved for him was Houdini in chains inside of a box that he was locked, tied with a rope with an anchor thrown in the water. And of course, Houdini escaped every time. In 1908, Houdini performed his infamous milk can trick for the first time.
So if you guys don't know what the milk can trick is, basically the audience would watch him fill a milk can or a milk barrel with water, and then Houdini be placed in handcuffs and then shoved inside of this milk barrel. On the outside of the barrel, it contained 6 padlocks. Then the curtain would be closed. The audience would hold their breath along with Houdini, who was obviously submerged underwater. Then 2 minutes later, the curtains opened. Houdini was broken free, and the padlocks were still on. The barrel still locked, which is insane that he was able to get out of that. And still to this day, no one has absolutely any idea how he performed this trick.
Houdini was amazing at hiding the secrets of his magic trick, and Houdini did not patent his tricks. If he had used a patent, he would have to give it away and would have to give an explanation as to how they worked, of course, and Houdini did not want that. But for his Chinese water trick, it was performed as a one-act play, and only one person in the audience was allowed, which allowed him to copyright his acts.
That was very smart on his part.
Oh yeah.
Because so many people would have made so much money, and
pretty much.
A lot of people believe that Houdini was supernatural, like he had supernatural powers. However, he would deny it. During World War I, both the United States and Europe, during this period of time, there was a wake of the spiritualist movement. Houdini criticized everything. Although we'll get into, yes, he does believe in spiritual stuff, he criticized a lot of people for being fraudulent. However, Houdini and his wife Bess apparently tried to summon people from the dead. Houdini went to a seance undercover, which he exposed the mediums. He basically told them that they were just skilled performers, and basically he recreated their tricks exactly how they were and said, "This is just magic. There's nothing supernatural about that."
Which is crazy. In 1913, Houdini went to Sweden to perform for his Vendetta's royal family. At the time, Houdini's mother, Cecilia, passed away, which of course he was upset like anybody would be. But according to the news, he fainted after hearing this. So he searched for a medium to get into contact with his mother and was invited to a seance by Lady Doyle, who was a wife of his friend, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who is the author of Sherlock Holmes, which are good books, by the way. Doyle believed he could contact his son, who died from the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. But Doyle thought Houdini was crazy. Why do you think Conan Doyle thought Houdini was crazy?
I think the reason why Conan Doyle thought Houdini was crazy is obviously no one has been able to replicate Houdini's tricks at all, like even to this day. And Houdini for his time, there was no one like him. So obviously the amount of skill that it took Houdini to perform these type of stunts is definitely hard for a lot of people to believe and comprehend. So I think that's why he thought that Houdini was crazy, because he never saw anyone else do anything like that.
Makes sense. This was back in the 1920s, so people didn't believe in a lot of things. People thought everybody was full of shit.
With magic tricks and stuff, people just thought it was insane.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure they did.
So the seance that Houdini went to was conducted at the Ambassador Hotel in Atlantic City. Lady Doyle wrote out 15 pages of messages from his mother who was dead. However, the pages were written in English. His mom never spoke in English. So Houdini wrote a book about exposing sideshow acts called Mongers and Methods, and it exposed people such as fire eaters, sword swallowers, human ostriches, and strong men. Why do you think Houdini waited until after the medium Lady Doyle wrote all the 15 pages to say that his mother never spoke in English?
Because he wanted to see if she was actually a fake or not. So, and this happens a lot of times actually too, where people will kind of say, hey, this didn't happen, or this person didn't speak English, etc. after seances, just to kind of pick out the imposters, because there are a lot of people who are not true mediums or anything like that. They just kind of do it for a side hustle and for money. So Houdini, of course, wrote a book exposing sideshow acts, so therefore, this probably was a part of his book too, to kind of expose people like mediums who are fake.
Yeah, I bet it was in there.
For sure, because especially back then, there was a lot of fake mediums.
For sure, and I can see even to this day there probably are.
Yeah, because people, like I said, they just do it as a side hustle or for income.
Yeah.
But in 1926, Houdini actually testified before Congress saying, "We need to regulate mediums. We need to charge those who tell fortunes or rewards or compensation." October 11th, 1926, Houdini fell and broke his ankle at a performance in Albany, New York. Because Houdini is Houdini, and he is not for the weak, he completed his performance and went against the doctor's orders, where he would perform in Montreal.
Yeah, this dude is insane.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, during Houdini's pastime, this was one of his favorite things to do. He would give lectures at McGill University, and he'd be talking about fraudulent spiritualists such as the mediums. A few days later, after his performance, he was visited by several students in his dressing room. Just a little bit weird, but that's whatever. And one of the students named Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead asked if he could punch Houdini in the stomach. Houdini said yes. However, before he had enough time to prepare, the student went pa-pow, pa-pow several times, smacking him in the stomach.
Later, that same evening, Houdini suffered stomach cramps, and clearly punching him was a very bad idea. 15 hours on his train ride, Houdini was struggling, and when he arrived in Detroit, he had a fever of 104 degrees, which is not good. Of course, Usually they say if you have a fever that high, you usually have to go to the hospital because your brain can get fried. The doctor at the theater diagnosed him with acute appendicitis, which, if you don't know, that's where the appendicitis, which is at the very end of your intestines, gets inflamed, which is very life-threatening. But Houdini was stubborn and he did not go to the hospital and said, quote unquote, "I'll do the show if it's my last." Why did Houdini refuse to go to the hospital when appendicitis is such a serious condition?
So Houdini is Houdini, and so anytime, as we can tell, like even after he injured his ankle, he still went on to perform. And so his passion was in performing magic tricks and performing in general. He had such an attachment to it, so I feel like that's why Houdini decided to continue to perform despite it being a very serious condition. Definitely, if you have appendicitis, you should go to a hospital. He also probably continued on because he was punched earlier, and so he probably just was like, that it's just no big deal when it really is a big deal.
Yeah, you're right.
So Houdini did survive the show. His wife finally convinced him to go to the hospital. October 24th, he had emergency surgery, which was to remove his appendix, which had already burst. October 28th, he had a second operation. Sadly, October 31st, 1926, Harry Houdini died from sepsis. So do you think that the student who hit Houdini's stomach causes appendicitis? If so, do you think the student should be held liable for their actions?
No, I don't think it caused his appendicitis. I think it was more coincidental timing because with appendicitis, like your appendix gets inflamed, and it's usually like that for a couple days, even a couple weeks before it bursts. So I think like just, student hitting him in the stomach may have accelerated it, agitated it possibly, whatever, but I don't think it caused it. Yeah. I don't think he should be held liable because how are you supposed to know if somebody has appendicitis? Like, you can't tell when internal organs are wrong or messed up. Like, that's not shown through, like, on the outside of a human body, so...
Right. And
I don't think he should be liable.
You would have to know, like, where exactly to hit to hurt someone, and that's really not in any medical books or anything.
No, I mean, like, back then they didn't know, but now common sense, your appendix is on your right side in your lower quadrant, but even then, like I said, hitting somebody in the stomach doesn't cause appendicitis. It could have aggravated it.
And do you think if Houdini was not stubborn and he actually went to the hospital, the outcome would have been different?
It would have been way different. He could have survived because at this point, when he went at the very last minute, his appendix had already burst, which can be very bad because all that fluid and all that internal bleeding can be very dangerous.
Right, yeah, he could have gotten there before.
No, he could have had it snip done. Could have been still alive, but he decided otherwise, so that was his last show, so whatever.
Yep, men are stubborn.
I think just everyone is. But I don't blame him. Like, doctors are kind of, like, iffy. There's a lot of bad doctors out there. But many suspect foul play, as there are odd circumstances before his death. First theory, of course, is, like you mentioned in your question, the student who hit Houdini caused his death. In the 2013 World Journal of Emergency Surgery, appendicitis due to blunt force trauma is rare, but happens. Refusing medical treatment was bad on his part, and of course, like I said, he could have survived, but because of him, he chose otherwise and he died.
And then theory 2, which is even more crazy than the previous theory that we just said, is that the student was supposedly an assassin. He was basically set up to kill him by punching him to death. Houdini did have many enemies, like he did talk trash about mediums and expose them. There was even some other magicians that did not like him because obviously Houdini got all this fame. And like I said, yeah, he wrote books exposing mediums. So maybe someone decided to send the student Whitehead to kill him. However, usually when someone is going to be murdered, you usually use weapons and not your fists. Now, you can use your fist and like choke someone out or punch someone. The main thing people really use are like knives, guns, and other sharp objects. So this makes the theory not as likely. So this is out there, but do you think was Whitehead hired as an assassin sent by the mediums to kill Houdini?
No, I don't think so. Poor his job if he did kill him because he punched him in the stomach. But no, I don't think, like, Houdini wasn't really a bad guy, and a lot of people didn't have a big vendetta against Houdini, so I don't think they would want to kill him per se. Although, I mean, like, he had all these tricks and stuff that he didn't have, like, share his secrets for, but still, I don't think it was, like, that big of a deal for him to be assassinated. Yeah, I think that just be outrageous.
Yeah, it seems weird to have, like, a magician assassinated. Now, like, a president or something, that's a different story, but...
Like, what's a magician gonna do for you, bruh?
But
Nothing. He just does tricks. Theory number 3, though, is that Houdini was poisoned. Houdini did criticize the spiritualist, and Houdini and Bess traveled with less security, which leaves a big window of time between his surgeries. When he was in the hospital, they could have easily been able to access a syringe, and no autopsy was performed, so cannot rule it out, of course. But my question to you is, who would want to poison Houdini?
So I think the only people that, if anybody wanted to poison Houdini, would obviously be someone that was like a medium, because of the amount of books Houdini wrote exposing them and exposing their tricks. But anybody else, there's not much information about anybody else really hating him, so that's really the only person who would want to poison him.
Which is crazy. Like I said, I don't think he was that. I don't want to be rude, but, like, I don't think he was that big of a deal. Not to poison him. It's just like, yeah, he's not that big of a deal. I'm sorry. Although Houdini was the Great, not important enough to want to poison somebody.
Just straight roast.
You know,
but
he probably...
his death had shocked many, many people. There has yet to be another magician to reach his level of success and talent. To this day, although he died from appendicitis, the secrets of his magic tricks remain a secret.
Feel free to put your input about Houdini in the comments below. Do you think there is more to his death? Maybe, maybe not. Thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know when Houdini will show up.